The rain came without warning, not gentle, not gradual. It felt like a broken sky crashing open, drowning the forest highway in sheets of silver. Dr. Arya Vale tightened her grip on the steering wheel as the wipers struggled to keep up. She had driven in storms before, emergencies, hospital runs, late-night shifts, but tonight felt different. Tonight, the road felt like it wanted to swallow her whole Dot. Her car shuddered Dot, then wobbled Dot then. With a sharp thunk, the back tire dragged as if she were pulling a dying animal behind her. Not now, she whispered, pulling over to the shoulder. Her phone flashed. Nitrogen monoxide service, of course. The storm roared, wind slapping rain against the windows. Arya stepped out, rain instantly soaking through her coat, her hair, everything. The flat tire hissed like it was mocking her. She knelt to inspect it, hands trembling from cold and exhaustion. She had worked a 14-hour shift. 2 surgeries. 1 failed. 1 saved. A grieving mother's scream still echoed in her skull. She had left the hospital just to breathe, to escape the crushing weight of decisions she couldn't undo. But here she was, stranded in the middle of a forest, alone. She opened the trunk, found the spare, and crouched to change it, but the bolts didn't budge. Her palms slipped, her knees sank into mud. Rain stung her eyes. "Come on," she muttered. "Just move." But nothing moved. Not the bolts. Not her tired, freezing fingers. Thunder cracked overhead, and a helpless, frustrated sob escaped her. She had saved people from death, from blood loss, from the brink. Yet here she was, defeated by a tire. She leaned back against the car, breath shaking. What am I even doing with my life? Her voice cracked. It disappeared into the storm. Then, distant headlights pierced the darkness. A truck? No. Bigger. Older. It looked ancient, like something from a forgotten decade. Its engine hummed low and deep as it slowed and stopped behind her. Car. Arya froze. The door opened. A man stepped out. Tall. Dark coat. Boots sinking into the mud as he approached. Even through the rain, she noticed something off. Something almost unreal, the way he moved. Elegant, quiet, controlled. Definitely not normal. "Are you all right?" He called out, voice steady despite the storm. She swallowed. "My tire, I can't get the bolts off." He stepped closer, lightning briefly illuminating his face. Pale skin, sharp jaw, eyes that gleamed like melted silver. Something powerful and ancient stirred behind them. He knelt beside the tire without hesitation. "I can help," he said. His voice was low, calm, oddly comforting. "You shouldn't be out here," she said, forcing strength into her voice. "Roads are dangerous tonight." "So are these woods," he replied, gripping the wrench. "And you shouldn't be alone out here." He tightened his hand on the stuck bolt, and with one smooth twist, it loosened like it had never been a problem. Arya blinked. The bolt hadn't just loosened. It had snapped. That shouldn't be possible, she whispered before she could stop herself. He simply offered a faint smile. Right tools. Right angle. But Arya, a doctor trained to notice the impossible, knew it was neither. He replaced the tire quickly, almost gracefully, like someone practiced at fixing broken things. Rain slid over his coat, but he didn't shiver. Didn't flinch. Didn't seem affected at all. When he stood, he wiped his hands, then extended one to her. "I'm Lucian," he said softly. His voice carried something unusual, something ancient, almost melodic. "Arya," she replied. "Dr. Arya Vale." "Doctor," he repeated, as if the word meant something heavier to him than it should. "You're all set now." She exhaled shakily, relief warming her, despite the cold. "Thank you. I really needed help tonight." He nodded once, eyes unreadable. "Everyone needs help eventually. Even those who save others." The word struck her. Strangely specific. Too aware, she studied him, unable to shake the feeling that there was something different about him, something he wasn't showing. "Do you live nearby?" she asked. "Close enough," he said, glancing toward the endless line of trees. There was a certain sadness in his expression, as if he'd lived centuries inside that single moment. He turned slightly, as if preparing to leave, but then he paused. "You should go," he said quietly. "These woods aren't safe after midnight. Not for someone with a heartbeat like yours." Arya frowned. "What is that?" But a flash of lightning swallowed her question. When she blinked against the brightness, Lucian was already walking away, not running, not vanishing dramatically, just walking. Yet he covered the distance impossibly fast, faster than any normal person could. Within seconds, he stood at the door of his old black truck. He glanced back at her one last time, eyes glowing faintly in the dark. Then he drove off. Taillights fading into the storm. Arya stood motionless, the rain suddenly feeling colder. What did he mean by a heartbeat like yours? She finally got back into her car, hands trembling as she started the engine, but the storm outside wasn't nearly as violent as the storm brewing inside her chest. She didn't know his name would return. She didn't know those silver eyes would follow her. She didn't know that. The man who helped her in the rain was tied to her fate in ways she could never imagine. Not yet. Not until the next morning, when she walked into her hospital's emergency ward and saw him again. Lucian, the man from the forest, the impossible stranger. He stood there in the harsh fluorescent light, pale, breathless, eyes glowing faintly as he whispered to the nurse, "I need a doctor, now." And he looked straight at Arya, as if he had come for her, as if he knew she was the doctor who held his fate. The EO was loud, chaotic, overflowing with the usual 2 a.m. tragedies, broken bones, bar fights, fevers, panic attacks. But Dr. Arya Vale didn't hear any of it. Her heartbeat thundered in her ears as she stood frozen near the nurse's station, staring at the man who had stepped out of the storm the night before. Lucian, the stranger who changed her tire. Like it weighed nothing. The man whose eyes glowed in the dark. The man who warned her about her heartbeat. He shouldn't have been here. He shouldn't have known where she worked. He shouldn't have looked this desperate. Dr. Vale. Nurse Hannah nudged her arm. "He asked for you by name." Arya turned sharply. "By name?" "Yeah," Hannah frowned. "You sure you know him?" "He looks..." She didn't finish the sentence. Lucian looked like death. Not the pale, weak kind. The wrong kind. Too pale, too sharp, too still. His skin looked like marble dipped in moonlight. And though he stood tall, his breath came in short, uneven bursts. His shirt was darkened with something that definitely wasn't rain. Blood. Our instincts kicked in instantly. Arya moved toward him. "What happened?" Lucian's eyes lifted to hers. Those eyes. Last night, they had reflected only stormlight. Now they carried something far worse, pain, and fear, not for himself, but of something else entirely. "I didn't want to come here," he said quietly, voice strained. "I shouldn't be here." "You're bleeding," Arya said, grabbing a pair of gloves from her pocket. "And you came to a hospital. That's the right place to be." He shook his head, jaw tight. "This is the worst place I could be." "Lucian, please," he said softly, almost pleading. "Not out here. Somewhere private." Arya hesitated. Everything about this was wrong. Patients didn't request privacy before getting treated. Patients didn't stand with wounds that should have collapsed them. Patients didn't look like they were hiding centuries behind their eyes. But last night, the man had helped her. Saved her in a way. And something deep inside, something she didn't want to examine, told her she had to help him now. "Room 9, she said quietly, signaling Hannah, "Clear it." Hannah obeyed. Though her confusion was obvious, as Arya led Lucien down the hallway, she felt eyes on them. Doctors, nurses, even a few patients staring at the strange man who carried himself like both royalty and ruin. Inside room 9, she closed the door behind them. Lucien leaned against the counter, breath shaky, eyes closing as if simply standing required effort. Sit, Arya said firmly. He obeyed. She stepped closer, scanning the soaked fabric at his side. I need to see the injury. His hand shot out, not grabbing her, just stopping her. You won't understand what you find. She met his eyes steadily. I'm a doctor. Try me. For a long moment, he didn't move. Then he slowly pulled off his coat and lifted his shirt. Arya froze. There were 3 deep gashes carved across his ribcage, claw marks. Impossibly long, impossibly precise, as if made by something not human. Skin torn to the bone, blood blacker than it should be. These, Arya whispered, these are from an animal attack? Lucien's voice was low. No animal you've ever treated. Arya swallowed hard. You need a trauma surgeon. I need you, he said sharply. Her breath caught. Why me? Because you don't scare easily, he murmured. Because you're smarter than the others. Because you'll ask questions, but you won't run. Arya didn't know whether to feel honored or terrified. She pulled a stool close and examined the wound more carefully. It was deep, too deep. He should have been unconscious or dead, but his pulse, when she checked it, was odd, slow, too slow. Barely there, Lucien. How long ago did this happen? An hour. You should be in shock. I don't get shock. You should be losing consciousness. I don't lose consciousness easily. You should be dead. His lips curled into a cold, tired smile. I know. Arya stared at him, voice barely a whisper. What are you? Lucien held her gaze, and something ancient flickered behind his eyes. That answer, he said, is why I didn't want to come here. Before she could respond, he suddenly stiffened, hand gripping the table. Arya leaned in. Lucien? His eyes darkened, not metaphorically, literally. The silver faded, replaced by a deep, shadowed black, like ink spreading over moonlight. Don't, he whispered through clenched teeth. Stand so close. Why? Because I'm losing control. Arya froze. He forced his breathing slower. Every vein in his neck stood out sharply. Every muscle tense, like he was fighting something inside himself. And he wasn't fighting pain. He was fighting hunger. You're bleeding out, she said softly. I need to close this wound. He shook his head, gripping the metal counter so hard it bent slightly under his fingers, as if it were thin foil. Normal stitches won't hold. Your tools won't work. Your medicine won't help. Then what will? He finally looked up, eyes black as night. Blood. Arya's pulse stumbled. Lucien? She whispered, stepping back. He lowered his head, shame washing over his expression. I didn't want you to know, he said. Not like this. Not here. Arya pressed her fingers to her temple. The impossible strength. The unnatural wounds. The strange glow in his eyes. And now blood. He wasn't human. He hadn't been for a long, long time. Say it, he said quietly. His voice shook, not from hunger, but from fear of her reaction. Arya met his gaze. You're a vampire. Lucien closed his eyes. And you, he whispered, are the only doctor who can keep me alive. Arya stared at him. The vampire. The impossible patient. The stranger who saved her in the rain. And now needed her in ways she couldn't yet understand. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. Room 9 felt too small, too bright, too sterile for the truth pulsing between them. Machines hummed. Rain tapped faintly against the emergency exit door. Somewhere down the hall, a patient coughed. A nurse laughed nervously, a monitor beeped. But inside this room, the world held its breath. Arya stared at Lucien. trying to reconcile everything she knew as a doctor with everything she now knew as a human being standing in front of a creature she was never supposed to meet. A vampire. The word itself felt absurd, childish, mythical, and yet he bled, he breathed, barely. He hurt not like a monster, not like a legend, but like a man. She swallowed hard. Lucien, what attacked you? His jaw tightened. Something older than me, older than a vampire. A ghost of a smile touched his lips. There's a reason most of my kind hide. The lights flickered just once, as if the rain had reached the hospital generators. But Lucien's eyes snapped up sharply, as though he sensed something else entirely. Arya noticed. Fear rippled through her, but curiosity pushed harder. Lucien, she said softly, you asked for a doctor, so let me treat you. I told you, he murmured. Your tools won't work on me, then tell me what will. His breathing hitched. The hunger was worsening. I need blood, he said, voice low. Fresh, not stored, not processed, and then your wound will heal. It won't fully close, he admitted, but it will stop tearing. Stop spreading. Spreading? Arya whispered. Lucien, what exactly clawed you? He hesitated. A wraith, he finally said. A hunter of my kind. Arya froze. A hunter here? His eyes darkened. It followed me. That's why I didn't want to come here. I didn't want humans caught in the middle. And you still came? She murmured. His eyes lifted to hers. Heavy, almost apologetic, because you were the only one I trusted to help me. Heat bloomed in her chest. She didn't want to feel it, but she did. She set the emotion aside and switched to her clinical tone. You need fresh blood. How much? A few ounces. Human? No. His voice softened. Grateful, she asked. Animal works, but I can't reach the woods like this. Arya exhaled in relief. She hadn't realized she'd been holding her breath. I can get some from the medical freezer, she said. We keep animal blood for certain procedures. His eyebrows lifted in surprise. You would do that? Risk yourself? Risk your job? She didn't know why, but her answer came instantly, yes. Lucien stared at her like he was trying to understand something deeper about her, something that wasn't written in her badge. Her coat or her medical degrees. Then a shadow crossed his expression. There's something else, he said. Arya stiffened. What? He hesitated, and hesitation looked wrong on him. Ancient creatures weren't supposed to be hesitant, but he was. When I take blood, he said slowly, a bond forms. A psychological bond? No. His voice shook subtly. Something older. Something deeper. Arya started to speak, but he lifted a trembling hand. You'll feel what I feel. Hear what I hear. Sometimes see what I see. Her breath caught. Like telepathy? A link, he whispered. If you help me tonight, our lives will brush together. Whether you want it or not. Arya stared at him. Lucien wasn't manipulating her. He was warning her. I don't want you tied to me, he said softly. My world is violent, endless, lonely. You're human. You deserve light. Not this. His voice cracked, and yet here I am, asking you to save me. Something twisted inside Arya's chest. The storm outside rumbled. As if echoing the one inside the room, she took a step closer. Lucien, she said quietly, I'm a doctor. You're my patient. Your world, your nature, none of that changes my job. He looked up at her, eyes burning with something painful and old. You don't understand, he whispered. If I bond with you, I will feel every time your heart hurts. Arya froze. But you'll survive, she said softly. He closed his eyes. Maybe. Then let me save you, she whispered. Silence stretched between them. Heavy, Fragile. Finally, he nodded once. A surrender. A plea. A promise. Arya slipped out of the room and down the hall to the lab freezer, heart pounding with each step. She grabbed a sealed pack of animal blood, hid it inside her coat, and returned quickly. When she stepped back inside, Lucien was bent over, gripping the table, eyes flickering between silver and black. He was losing control again. "Here," she whispered. Holding out the blood pack, he stared at it, then at her, then, voice barely a breath, "Stay close. If I fall unconscious, pull me back. Don't let me slip away." She stepped beside him. He tore open the pack with trembling hands, too fast, too desperate, and drank. Arya watched in stunned silence as the transformation happened. Almost instantly, his breathing steadied. His eyes shifted from black to silver. His posture straightened. His wound stopped dripping and the torn flesh began to tighten, threading itself together like a living puzzle. She couldn't look away. Science said this was impossible. Her eyes said it was real. Lucien wiped his mouth, shame flickering across his features as he realized she had seen him at his worst. "Thank you," he whispered, but before she could answer, a sudden bang echoed from the hallway. Lucien stiffened. Arya jumped, footsteps slow, deliberate, approached the room. Lucien's hand shot to her arm. "It's here," he said, voice deadly calm. "The wraith found me." The lights flickered again. A shadow spilled across the crack under the door. Arya's heart slammed against her ribs. Lucien stepped in front of her. "If it comes in," he whispered, "you run. I won't leave you." His jaw tightened. "Then neither of us will survive." The doorknob turned. Once. Twice. The metal groaned. Lucien bared his teeth, not in hunger, but in warning. The door flung open, and Arya saw her first glimpse of the creature hunting him. The door slammed open with a sound that didn't belong in a hospital. Not metal. Not wood. Something more primal. Arya's breath caught in her throat as the creature stepped inside, or rather, unfolded inside. Tall, thin, shadow-boned. Its limbs were too long. Its movement too smooth, like smoke poured into the shape of a man. Skin gray as old ash. Eyes milky, swirling like fog. And its mouth, it didn't open. It split. A slow, wet crack stretching from cheek to cheek, revealing needle-thin rows of blackened teeth. "Stay behind me," Lucien murmured, voice low and lethal. The creature's head twitched toward Arya. It smelled her heartbeat. Her pulse quickened. "Lucien, it can sense fear," he whispered. "I am afraid," she hissed. His hand slid back, brushing her wrist, anchoring her. "You're allowed to be," he murmured. "Just don't run." The wraith hissed, a sound like broken glass being dragged across stone. The monitors flickered. The fluorescent light sizzled overhead. Lucien's body shifted subtly, not into a monstrous form, but into something sharper, older, colder. His eyes deepened to a storm silver glow. "Why is it here?" Arya whispered. "Why you?" Lucien didn't look away from the creature. "Because I broke a rule." Her heart lurched. "What rule?" "I helped a human." Arya froze. "Last night. The rain. The tire. Her. The creature hissed again, taking a step forward. Its fingers were long, jointed wrong, curved like bone blades. Lucien stepped back, shielding Arya completely. His voice a quiet growl. "She is not yours." The wraith twitched, head snapping left and right as if sniffing the air. "She's a doctor," Lucien continued. "A healer. She saved me, and you will not touch her." The creature cocked its head, mouth splitting wider at the scent of Arya's blood rushing beneath her skin. Arya's hand flew instinctively to her chest. Lucien reached back blindly and found her trembling fingers. He squeezed once, grounding her. The creature lunged. Lucien shoved Arya aside, barely dodging the slash. The wraith's claws carved through the metal counter behind them like it was soft butter. Arya gasped. Lucian pivoted, grabbing the creature by the throat, slamming it back into the wall so hard the tiles cracked. The wraith writhed, hissing, its limbs contorting unnaturally. For a moment, Lucian looked terrifying, stronger than a man, stronger than anything she'd witnessed. But then he stumbled. His wound tore again, blood seeping through his shirt. He wasn't fully healed. "Lucian!" Arya cried. He gritted his teeth, tightening his grip around the creature's neck. Its claws lashed out, slicing deep across his shoulder. Lucian winced but didn't let go. "Arya," he snapped. "You need to get out." "No." She shouted. "You said if I run, it will chase me." Lucian's jaw clenched. He hated that she was right. The creature screeched, a bone-shattering sound that made the lights explode overhead. Glass rained down. Arya shielded her face with her arms. When she looked again, the wraith had slipped through Lucian's grip like smoke and reformed behind him. "Lucian!" Too late. The creature's claws stabbed clean through his back. Arya screamed. Lucian dropped to one knee, blood staining the floor beneath him. The wraith withdrew its claws, turning its clouded gaze toward Arya once more. Her breath broke, her legs trembled, but she didn't run. Instead, she moved. She grabbed the metal pole from beside the bed. The creature lunged. Arya swung. The pole struck the creature's face with a metallic crack, surprising it long enough for Lucian to stagger back to his feet. He grabbed Arya's arm. "We need to go," he rasped. She nodded quickly, but her eyes flicked to his wounds. "Lucian, you're bleeding too much." He wiped his mouth with the back of his hand. "I've survived worse." The creature shrieked, limbs reconfiguring, crawling along the wall like a giant. Broken spider. Lucian pulled Arya toward the door, but as they reached the threshold, the creature's voice, thin, whisper-like, slid through the air. "Doctor, your heart." Arya froze. Lucian stiffened. The wraith's fractured grin widened. "So loud." Something primal inside Arya recoiled. Lucian pulled her closer, one arm around her waist in a protective hold, so instinctive it shocked both of them. "She's under my protection," he growled. The creature's voice seeped through. "The room like poison. You protected her once. Now she is marked." Lucian's breath caught. Arya's pulse thundered. "Marked?" She whispered. "What does that mean?" Lucian didn't answer. His silence was worse than any explanation. The creature hissed one last time, then dissolved into shadow, slipping through the shattered light fixtures and disappearing into the ceiling vents. The room fell quiet. Too quiet. Arya's knees buckled. Lucian caught her, steadying her despite his wounds. "Arya," he whispered, voice strained but steady. "Are you hurt?" She shook her head. "No," she breathed. "But you are." He let out a humorless, pained chuckle. "That's becoming a pattern with us." She stared at him, truly stared, at the immortal creature bleeding for her. The vampire who stood between her and death twice in 24 hours. "Lucian?" Her voice cracked. "What did it mean? Marked?" Lucian closed his eyes. "When I helped you in the rain," he whispered. "I didn't just change a tire." He opened his eyes slowly, and their silver glow carried something ancient and devastating. "I tied your fate to mine." Arya's breath hitched. Lucian held her steady. "And now," he whispered, "the creatures hunting me will come for you too." Arya's world tilted. Not from fear, but from the realization that her life had already changed. The night she met him in the rain, everything in the universe had shifted. And neither of them could go back. The alarms in the hospital had finally begun to blare, motion sensors detecting shattered glass, lights flickering from strange electrical interference. nurses rushing down the hall with confusion stamped across their faces. But inside room 9, time seemed to stand still. Lucian still held Arya, one arm firm around her waist, the other pressed against his bleeding side. Their breaths mingled in the cold air of the ruined room. Her heart thundered. His barely beat. It shouldn't have felt like they were standing on the edge of something enormous, but they were. Lucian. Arya whispered, "Explain it. What does marked mean?" He swallowed, jaw tight. He didn't want to say it, but he owed her the truth. "When I touched you that night, when I helped you," he said quietly, "I broke a vow. My kind are forbidden from intervening in a human's fate. We're supposed to remain shadows, observers, nothing more. You were helping me," she whispered. "That shouldn't be a crime. For us," he said, "it is." His silver eyes met hers, honest, raw, full of centuries of regret. "I gave you kindness," he murmured. "And in our world, kindness has a cost." Arya stepped back just enough to look at him fully. "What cost?" He closed his eyes for a moment, as if gathering strength. "When a vampire willingly risks his existence for a human, a bond forms. Subtle at first, almost unnoticeable, but the wraith could smell it." "I don't understand," Arya whispered. "What kind of bond?" Lucian lifted his hand slowly, hesitantly, and brushed his fingers over her wrist. Her pulse jumped under his touch, and at the same time, his breathing eased, just barely, as if her heartbeat steadied him. He pulled his hand away, almost afraid of it. "Your life force pulses differently to me now," he said. "Your fear, your pain, even your hope. I sense it." Arya stared at him, her chest tightening. "And you?" She whispered, "Do I feel anything from you?" His eyes softened, painfully, beautifully. "You will," he said. "In time." A shiver ran through her. Not fear. Connection. Dangerous. Illogical. But real. She took a slow step forward, lifting his shirt to inspect the wound again. The fresh blood had stopped flowing, but the gashes were still deep. "We have to treat this," she said firmly. "You're losing strength." "I'm used to pain," he murmured, "but I'm not used to seeing you bleed." Lucian inhaled sharply. Her voice, the way she said "you," it struck him deeper than the claws had. "Arya," he whispered, "don't get attached to me." She looked up at him, eyes burning. "It's too late." Lucian's expression cracked, not in fear, but in something far more human. Guilt, want, conflict. He turned away, bracing his hand on the broken counter. "I don't want you to be dragged into my world," he said. "It's darkness and death and centuries of enemies. You deserve a normal life. A human life. Normal?" She scoffed softly. "You've seen my shifts. I spend my days losing patience, watching families break apart, carrying guilt until it crushes me." She stepped beside him. "Don't talk to me about darkness, Lucian. I live in it too." He looked at her then, really. Looked as if seeing her differently for the first time. "You shouldn't have to carry my darkness as... well, then let me choose it." Silence crashed over the room. Lucian's composure broke for a fraction of a second, eyes flickering with an emotion he had no right to feel for. "Human, you don't understand what choosing me means. Then help me understand," she said softly. Closed his eyes. "The wraith won't stop," he whispered. "It knows your scent, your heartbeat. It will hunt you until one of us dies." Arya's throat tightened, but she didn't look away. "Then we fight it." Lucian let out a breath of disbelief. "You're human, frail, breakable." "I'm also a doctor," she countered. "I save what I care about." Lucian stared at her, breath unsteady. "What if you shouldn't care about me?" he asked, voice barely audible. Arya's heart stumbled, and she knew he felt it. She stepped closer. "Then why?" She whispered, "Do you keep saving my life?" Lucien looked torn, ancient longing battling ancient fear. He reached out but stopped inches from her cheek. Fingers trembling. "I'm not good for you," he said. Voice hoarse. Arya leaned in just enough that their breath mingled. "Then why do I feel safe with you?" Lucien shuddered. Her words hit him like confession and temptation entwined. But then his eyes sharpened, not with desire, with alarm. "They're coming back." Arya stiffened. "The wraith?" "More of them," he whispered. "Wraiths hunt in packs." Fear shot through her. "Then we have to leave." Lucien nodded. "I know a safe place." He reached for her hand the moment their skin touched. A sharp pulse of energy spiraled through both of them. Startling, intimate, undeniable. Arya gasped. Lucien flinched. "That," she breathed. "What was that?" "The bond," he said quietly, eyes locked to hers. "It's strengthening." Her cheeks warmed. Her pulse fluttered. And Lucien felt every second of it. His voice dropped to a whisper. "If we stay here, you die." Arya nodded. "Then take me with you." Lucien didn't ask again. He simply pulled her close, an arm around her waist, protective and possessive in a way that terrified him, and led her through the back corridor, away from the alarms, away from the hunters gathering in the shadows of the world. As they stepped into the rain-soaked night, Arya clung to him. "Lucien?" "Yes." Her voice was barely a breath. "What happens to us now?" He looked down at her, eyes glowing faintly in the dark, his voice a mix of fear and fate. "Now," he whispered, "we survive together." He pulled her closer. "And if the bond keeps growing?" His eyes softened, almost breaking. "We may become something neither world will forgive." But he didn't let go of her hand, and she didn't let go of his. Not anymore, not after fate had tied them together in the rain.